After you graduated in 1956, why Baylor?
Well, I looked at several medical schools, and of course that we were interviewing in the like September, October, where it was still hot and humid, and most of the southern schools that I had interviewed, and Baylor had a brand new building that had air conditioning, and it also had Dr. DeBakey. And
was that when you heard of Dr. DeBakey first?
I'd actually heard of Dr. DeBakey before I went to medical school, when I was at the University of Arizona. And so we heard not only of Dr. DeBakey, but also of Dr. Cooley and their accomplishments at that time. And so that inspired me to consider coming to Baylor to try and be among those people that they were training and working with.
There it is. There's the real inspiration. That was Dr. George Noon giving that amusing response to why he chose to come here to Houston. And I'm here with Kendyl Turner, who Kendyl is actually one of our producers right here on the KPRC 2+, and also the granddaughter of Dr. Noon. And as we just heard, he came to Houston to work with these medical greats. And the reason that we're talking about this today is because this is the 55th anniversary of the first successful heart transplant. And that medical innovation is really what put Houston on the map as a worldwide medical mecca.
Absolutely.
And your grandfather was part of that, a medical pioneer in his own way.
Yeah, and aside from the air conditioning that he wanted to receive while being educated, he said that, Dr. DeBakey was a big draw that brought him to Texas. And so it's just so fascinating to, learn more and kind of dive into his career, especially on today, having it, be the 55th anniversary. And so I know he is bummed that he can't be here with us this morning. There was a little conflict, so you guys all have to deal with me in his place, but hopefully I can kind of shed some light on everything that he's done. And
well, we hope he's watching too. Good morning, Dr. Noon. And he had many firsts, right? So there was a single lung transplant, a ventricular assist device, the first type of that device. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, and I actually kind of have a reference point too, because I went down the rabbit hole last night reading everything, and this is just so fascinating to me. But in the 60s and 55 years ago when all of this happened, this was such a pivotal moment for medical history. And so we know medicine now through the lens of 2023, but it's just incredible how far they've come. And so I was reading that, he was the first lung transplant here in Texas, but nationwide too, the first adult heart lung transplant, the first successful single lung transplant, and then also the first domino heart transplant in Houston. So quite the resume.
Yeah, that is really amazing. I mean, do you even realize, look, there he is in family photos, growing up with, as I mentioned, a medical pioneer like this. Do you understand the significance that his career had on all of medicine, much less, just here in Houston too?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, he was always GP to us. And I say that very fortunate to be his granddaughter, but we had no idea the scope of his contributions and everything that he's done. And y'all saw in some of the pictures, like, he was just our grandfather. I mean, we would hang out. We had tons of family trips over the years. We would just go to the beach or, go to our ranch and have fun. And anytime we would kind of ask him questions, he would just say, oh, yeah, like, heart surgery, like, it's fine, but you got a triple in your game, like, tell me about that. And so he would always just pivot back to us. And so we were so fortunate, but no, I mean, we had no idea.
I love that he was a real family person in his personal life. He was very present in his personal life. And then in the medical world, you said that he even operated on Dr. DeBakey, but he, I said, well, was that a lot of pressure? And you made the comment that all of his patients were important to him.
Yeah, and
it's kind of hard to believe that you can do that many surgeries and have that many patients that are equally important.
I know, and it's something that, it's the bedside manner to just say, like, I care about all my patients, and doctors do, of course, but he always went above and beyond. I mean, he was there when they woke up. He was always communicating with families, and, I was telling you too, like, to him, every patient had the significance of Dr. DeBakey. Every beating heart is a life, and he recognized that, and he knew the importance of what he did and restoring that heartbeat to get these patients back to their families. And it's just mind-blowing. You can have so much intelligence, but also the compassion that he has as well.
I love that. So he was very he was very deserving of
Yes.
this, a proclamation. He has his own day here in Houston.
Yes, and you know, he is the most humble and modest person that you will ever meet. So I had to bring, this is an entire scrapbook just filled with accolades and recognition. And so there are letters from presidents, but this is my favorite because it's from right here in Houston. It's the Dr. George Noon Day, and this has to do with a medical device that he created hand in hand with NASA and Dr. DeBakey, of course. But, you know, me being a native Houstonian too, I would always just say, hey, you know, coming up I think it's May 10th.
Oh, it is coming
But I was like,
up.
did you know that's Dr. Noonday? And he's my grandfather, and he's really great. And people are like, okay.
Okay, we get it, Kendyl.
Exactly.
You told us that yesterday. It's just a daily
I'm
joke.
just so proud of him. Yeah,
That's
well, every
wonderful.
once a year.
Did he have any memorable patients? Do you know any of those stories?
He did, and I mean, he has patients that, you know, across the globe, very high profile patients, but one of them in particular was just, we still laugh about it to this day because he had to go travel to the Soviet Union to do open heart surgery on one of their leaders, and this was at the time when Houston was just very far ahead of just the world in terms of everything, and so they had to take all of their supplies to what's now Russia, but to perform the surgery. So this is from an interview that he did, but I'll kind of let you hear it from him, how that went down and something else that he took along with him.
Little family treasure.
It all started with Keldy, who of course was the president of the Academy of Science. He was the head of all scientific activities within the Soviet Union at that time. And he had aortic occlusive disease and having claudication and was having some wrist pain, and actually had been seen. I think he'd been in Mexico and came through Houston and stopped at NASA, and Dr. DeBakey saw him there.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, it was decided that he was going to need an operation, and the thing was, where do we do it, U.S. or in the Soviet Union? And so it was elected to do it over there in the Soviet Union. So we made arrangements to go over there.
Now, I'd heard that everything went over there, the entire OR from Houston.
Well, we took all the instruments, grafts, sutures, etc. that we needed. We took a nurse, his scrub nurse, and actually took my wife, who wasn't a nurse, but we trained her to act as a circulating nurse.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they were surprised when they found out she wasn't a nurse when she was in there taking care of it.
So quite a surprise, he takes your grandmother.
Who's not a nurse.
She's not a nurse.
She's a school teacher.
It sounds like they almost just trained her to just act like a nurse too.
They did, and it was something that we just still laugh about today because, I mean, there were pictures of my grandmother that showed up earlier, but she was just the most petite, gentle woman, and we look at her, we called her Bobs, and we said, Bobs, you did open heart surgery as a nurse? She goes, I sure did. That's that. We're like, okay, well, there you go.
What a funny family story to be able to pass down for generations. Like, oh yeah, she was there too.
Yep, there she was, just in the luggage. There she went.
That's amazing. I love this story for your family. I love how he's kept your family so close, and you guys have such a great bond now. That's really something special.
We're very fortunate. We're very lucky, and I just want to, thank you guys for having me on to let me talk about him a little bit, because I know I can speak for my whole family. We're just so proud of him. We love him so much, and we're just so in awe of everything that he's done in Houston, but globally as well for the medical industry and heart surgery and all of that.
Yeah. Well, once again, this is Kendyl Turner. She is one of the producers here on our show. Thank you for sharing stories of Dr. Noon, your grandfather's legacy here in Houston. Especially, as I mentioned, this is the 55th anniversary of the first successful heart transplant, which many attribute to making Houston more than just an oil and gas town, but a worldwide medical destination. Thank you, Dr. Noon, if you're watching. Zach, did you know any of that?
No, but this is all amazing. This was fascinating. And to have him as part of your family, I was thinking, when we were listening to him talk, he's that typical grandpa, but he's so remarkable. My grandfather was not a heart surgeon, but he was so humble with you guys, and
really great. Yeah.
That's so impressive.
And he still is too, because I was talking with him over the weekend and asking him, I was like, hey, you were a part of this surgery, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, but how are you doing? How's your son doing? And I was like, no, I want to talk about you. And he was like, enough of that, like, let's go. And I was like, he's just our grandfather, and it's just awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool. Maybe he can come on sometime.
Yes,
he would love that.
Well, thank you for sharing him with us.